Hello everybody, this is Carlo from Forge Glory Custom Leathercraft, making you another video. And as you see, I am putting together a heat shield, and this is the last part of the heat shield I have to put together. It's the pouch, and so this heat shield is for a Harley Davidson. As you can see, you can have your initials put on it, you know, whatever initials you want, whatever art you want, we can put on it. But our goal is to make this side look like this side. So we already have part of the gusset put together for the pouch, and so I just wanted to show you guys how I sew everything together. And I think I just lost my needles. Well, isn't that great? Okay. Where did my needles go? Probably went, yep, they rolled underneath here. So the first thing I do is I wet the leather gusset. I actually started on this last night, finishing it up this morning. So I wet the leather gusset. It was wet last night when I sewed it on to the heat shield, but it's dry now and I want it to be wet again. The reason why I wet it is so that when it sews on, it'll be a lot more pliable and form. As you see, you know, it'll be a lot more pliable and it's going to form to the pouch. So that's the first thing you want to do, is you want to get it wet. And then, you know, some people wait a while for it to dry. You know, I just kind of set it aside while I get everything else done. The second thing I do is I tape up my fingers. If you've ever done 8 hours of hand sewing, then you know your fingers are going to hurt. So I tape up my fingers, and then I take the thread, and with the kind of stitch that I'm using, it's going to be a saddle stitch. I need 4 times the length of what I actually need. So there we go. That's 4 times the length. And I used, this is actually a nylon thread, and it's waxed. So it slips through the leather a lot easier. Okay, so what I just did is I poked the needle through the thread. I bring it here to the end. And also, when it's waxed, you don't have to worry about the little hairs of thread, which is really nice when you're trying to get it through the eye of the needle. So as you see, I poke it through the thread, and then I put it through the eye of the needle, and then it comes out in a knot. So that way, when I pull on it, it's not going to come loose. It's in a knot. If you use a thinner thread, you're going to want to do that a couple more times. Instead of just poking through it once, you're going to want to do it 3 or 4 times, so that way it keeps it steady. Well, there's my dog barking at somebody. Well, I should say my wife's dog. I don't claim the animals in my house. There we go. And now we got both sides of the thread done. So this is a, so why do I spend all the time hand sewing and not, and I don't get machines? The simple reason is, putting on my gloves. I always put on gloves too, because it helps protect my hands. After a while, you know, I mean, if you're just doing one project, then not that big a deal. But if you're doing 8 hours of sewing, it's really going to tear up your hands doing it by hand. All right, got my gloves on. And the type of stitch that I use is called saddle stitching. Get my pliers out. And the reason why you use it is because, well, I mean, everybody's bought something where the thread came loose and you pulled on it and the whole thing fell apart. And that really sucks. And so with this, if when it's sewn together, if you cut one stitch, the rest of them are going to stay together, because, you know, it's not, how to explain it? So in a regular machine, the needle goes through with the thread, and then underneath is another thread that it ties to, and then comes up and goes through another hole, and it ties again, and it keeps on doing that. But, you know, and it just keeps on doing it down the line. But if you cut one of those little knots that it goes through, then the whole thing is going to come apart. So with this, you don't have that, because each hole has a thread going through. So I threaded put my needle through, got them out to even, so that it's even on both sides. And generally I do one side. I mean, technically, a true saddle stitch, like if you go to the purists who do it, is you go through the hole with both needles at the same time. I don't do that. Here, let me show you a true saddle stitch. Well, first I kind of messed up the end here. So I always do at the end a loop around, just to kind of lock it all in. I'll do a loop around the end there. And then, so in true saddle stitching, you put one needle through, and you put the other needle through, and then you push them through at the same time. And there you go. That is a true saddle stitch. That's the first one. Both needles going through at the same time. I don't understand why people do that. That just seems like a lot more work, because you have to let go of the needle and then grab the other needle, and it just seems like a lot more work to me. So what I do is I grab one needle and I go through all the way to a bend. So right here, I'm going to go through all the way here. Because I found, you know, if you're doing 8 hours of stitching in a day, you need to save your time. And I'm sure that all of you who have been waiting a month and a half or two for your products to get to you, that you anxiously want me to use every method to save time that doesn't compromise how well made the product is. And so this is one of those things where I just find it a lot easier to go with one side of the thread, go all the way down, instead of putting one needle partially through, letting go, grabbing the other needle, putting it partially through, and then grabbing both needles and pulling them both through. It takes a little more time. And I understand the reason why a lot of people do it that way is because they don't want the needle to go through the thread. But I don't understand that either. I don't see what the problem is with this kind of thick thread that I'm using. What the problem is with the needle going through the thread. If it's all tight, it's all going to hold, and it's not, you know, it's just going to go through the threads, but it's not actually going to cut the thread. Now, if it was going to cut the thread, then okay, I understand. But it doesn't cut the thread. It doesn't make it weaker. It doesn't affect it in any way to do it this way. But some people just, you know, they're a million, no, not a million, but there's a lot of different ways to sew. And people find their techniques that they like and they enjoy doing. I like the fastest way that doesn't compromise the quality of what I'm making. So you can imagine on this one, you know, it's got the 2 pouches, and they also ordered the decorative stitching to go along the edge. So this was probably about 2-3 hours of sewing altogether. And if they had ordered the suede backing, and then, you know, the suede backing would be on the back, and then I'd have to do a stitch all around this, and so it would definitely be, you know, closer to that 3 hours of stitching. Now, when it comes to the corners, you know, I want the leather to mold around the corners. So here I will do, you know, 1 needle at a time, pull it tight, because I want this leather, you know, this leather, it's wet, and so it's going to mold into the shape that I put it into. And so with these corners, the corners are trickier. Might take you a little more. There we go. So with the corners, just to get them set without any problems, get them tight. The tighter the thread on the corners, the easier the leather is going to mold into the shape that is needed for the pouch. There we go. After a while, you get better at it, but, you know, pretty much while I'm sewing, I've done it for so long, that while I'm poking the needle through, I can feel when it's gone through the second piece of leather. There we go. And when you're using the same stitch, the same kind of stitch at the same distance, you just get used to knowing where everything's at. But at the beginning, yeah, this would have taken me a lot longer when I started 8 years ago sewing this much, because I wasn't good at finding the different holes. Okay, so here, so to make this gusset, I took 2 pieces of leather that were the same size and sewed them together here in the center. And so going through 3 pieces of leather is hard. Getting all 3 pieces of leather to line up. There we go. So what I do is I push it through the easiest way. Then when it's through like that, there we go. So yeah, I once did a saddlebag, and at the pouch where the saddlebag attached, there were 3 pieces of leather. The back piece that held it, the actual bag that attached to it, and then the pouch flap. And sewing through 3 pieces of 10 to 11 ounce leather, which is really thick, was very difficult. And I decided not to make my saddlebags that way anymore after the first couple. And so I make the back piece all one piece. You know, the back of the saddlebag, and then the part that drapes over, kind of like this heat shield's made. So that way I only have one thing. And then after that, I started using rivets to attach the pouch face, because that takes a whole lot less time. And it's you know, it's the back of the heat shield, so you're not going to see the decor, you know, it's not, I mean, it's the back of the saddlebag, so you're not going to see the stitching anyway. So it's not going to be as decorated. So I was like, you know, if I used rivets, that would save me hours every single week. But yeah, as I've progressed in the 9 years that I've been doing leather work, from hobby to professionally, I've learned some tricks along the way and how to make things easier on myself and take less time, but never sacrificing on the quality. So I used to sew everything. Everything used to be sewn. And then I was like, you know, this is taking forever. And customers were getting mad that things took a little longer than they should have. At the time I was backed up 8 months. Because, you know, everything was hand sewn. You know, that was years ago. And so I decided I'm going to start using some rivets. You know, that wasn't the plan in the beginning. And so like this here, this would have been sewn on. The keep would have been sewn on. Everything would have been sewn on instead of using rivets. But, you know, the rivets are actually better than sewing. Better for the leather than sewing when you have little places like that. And of course, rivets in other places like this, you know, you can't use a rivet to, you know, put the pouch together here. It wouldn't make sense because it would just take up too much space and I don't know, wouldn't look good. But where I can use rivets, I use rivets now. That saved me a whole lot of time in sewing. Because you can just sit there, punch all your holes at once. Load up the rivets all at once. And then use the tool to pound the rivets into place. I don't know what that's called. There's probably some kind of word used for that. I don't know, probably riveting. I don't know. Probably something like that. I'm overcomplicating it. A word for putting rivets on. Riveting? I don't know. Okay. So you see, I work my way to the corner. Now I'm going to use the other thread and work my way to that same corner. Now, because the thread is through the hole, it's going to be a little harder to sew this line. And then coming through here where those 3 pieces of leather are for this gusset, that's going to be really hard to get through. So I go the path of least resistance, go through, and this is where I use my needle nose pliers. Save my fingers a little bit. But sometimes, you know, the needle will get jammed up, or the thread will, and it's hard to pull through. And that's where the needle nose pliers come in handy. Save your fingertips. So let's see, right now I have this heat shield in the works. I have a trifold wallet that'll be going out. It's currently drying, so that'll be going out tomorrow. I'm actually racing the clock right now, hoping I can get this heat shield in the mail today. But this one, it already has the You know, I just got to shine it up a little bit and it'll be ready to go today. Then all my products take, you know, everything but the helmets or anything that I have to mold the leather on is going to take at least 3 days to make. The helmets, those take over a week. But 3 days, usually no longer than 3. And that's starting from cutting the leather till it's completely done. Because first I cut the leather, and usually what I do to make things faster for everybody is when the hide comes in, I put the templates on the hide and I cut everything out all at once. Instead of, okay, I'm working on the next project, so now I have to go to where the leather is, and I have to pull the leather out, and then I have to put the template on it, and then I have to cut that one piece, and then I got to put the leather away. So that way, you know, you consolidate your steps, things go a little faster for me. So when I get the leather in, I'll go ahead and cut all the pieces that are supposed to come out of that leather. Then I put them in a big stack, put them off to the side, and then I just start at the top of the stack and go through the orders and start doing them like that. So here again, starting here, doing the corner, this is where I like to do needle for needle. Because it just, so that way I can get it really tight, I can get the threads really tight, and it really helps the gusset to mold into the shape that is needed for the pouch. But anyway, a little more about my process. So when the leather's cut, I put it to the side, put it in a big stack. Then I just take from the top and, you know, work my way down. There are times when I'll do batches, like if I have 15 bedrolls, for let's just say. So if I do a heat shield, then a bedroll, and then a wallet, and then whatever, then I have to reconfigure my bench, because each one of those uses different tools, different things. And so it's easier, you know, if I'm doing bedrolls, I can do I can do about 14 bedrolls in 2 days. And so I'll kind of like save up all the bedrolls to do them at once. You know, once I get about 14 bedrolls, then I'll take 2 days and I do nothing but bedrolls. Heat shields with no pouch, I can get about, you know, depends on what's going on with them. But I can get about, geez, I would say 6 in 1 day done. If they don't have any stitching, if they don't have the suede backing on them, it's just the heat shield, no pouch, no nothing on it. I can get about 6 of those done in 1 day. Now, when they're stitching, yeah, no. That greatly reduces how many I can do in 1 day. But, so then I'll save up the heat shields with art on both sides, no stitching, no pouches for 1 day, you know, and I'll push out 6 in 1 day. So yeah, I guess about 12 in 2 days. Less, a little less than the bedrolls. I don't know, I'm really good at getting bedrolls out. The wallets, the long wallet, if I have all the tools out, I can make one every, it takes about an hour and a half. And so instead of, so when I have all the wallets already cut, it's just easier. Oh man, this one's kicking my butt. I can't get through there. So when I have a hole that I can't find, what I do is I put the needle in and I do this, which makes the hole bigger. So that way when I come through the back, it's a lot easier to find. There we go. A little pro tip for you, as they say on all the YouTube videos. But this is the way you know. I've been doing this for years, and this is how I found out how to do it. Pro tip. There we go. And here at the end, I put the other stitch. Now, instead of grabbing this thread and going all the way through, I just keep using this thread and come back. Now, I don't want this thread to end on this side because I want to cut it off and then I burn the threads. Since they're nylon, they're like a nylon thread covered in wax. So I'll cut it off and I'll burn the thread and it'll make like a goo that then hardens and works out really well. Yep, this is going to be another one. Yeah, this is going to be a hard one. Yeah, I should have sewn to here and then brought up the other one, but I didn't. And this is the problem that I have. It's finding the other end. Okay, come on. There we go. Found it. That's another problem with the corners, is the corners do take a little bit longer because you're... Yep, there we go. Because on the corner, the leather doesn't completely line up exactly, so it takes a little longer, and that's why I found that on the corner, you know, and this isn't really a corner, it's just a bent edge. But yeah, that's why I usually go to a corner or whatever and do both threads through the corner, but I didn't do that this time. All right, so that's getting a little too short to work with. I'll cut it off there. We'll continue with this thread. There we go. And we are done with the sewing. Now that it's done, I'm cutting them both off a little shorter. And my handy dandy lighter, and I know that there's just bad luck about using a white lighter. I don't know where that came from, but I've heard it. There you go. Burn the edges. So as you see, it kind of goos there. Helps it all stay together. And then I have this. And so I learned, you know, this side you can cut this edge out so that it'll fit. But sometimes things don't line up. And so I don't want to cut this edge until the last thing. Because there's nothing more annoying than you get through the whole piece of leather and then you needed a couple extra holes. But you've already cut it. So you can't really do anything. And so this is a dauber. It's a wool dauber. It's been dipped in dye over here on the side and coloring up that edge. And I like to put those edges in. And now, there we go. So this is the first time that the face of this pouch has been bent into this shape. So we got to help it a little bit. Pull the straps up. And as you see, the strap doesn't have the holes in it yet. So go ahead and mark where the hole's going to go through. Do the same thing on this side. Mark where the hole's going to go through, right about there. And then I get my strap template. And this is what we do. So, this board is for punching holes. Get my hole. And my strap cutter. Oop, just dropped it. That's my hole punch. And the strap cutter. Huh, probably just saw the top of my bald head right there. So what I do is line this up on top. So this is just my basic strap, what I use for everything. And so this side is what I use to make where the buckle goes. And then this side is for the ends. I also have one of these for belts, you know, just to have as a template. So, okay, I mark where the holes go. And that was just barely long enough. And on this, there's the mark that I made when I was measuring it out. And generally for belts, it's you use 5 holes. You know, 1 where you expect the buckle to go through, and then 2 behind and 2 in front. And there we go. Some people use a hammer. I like to use a maul. And this, when cutting holes and whatnot, something like this, you know, a hammer is perfectly fine. I use a maul for everything else that I do. So that's what I use. There we go. So that's what so yeah, I use the maul for this because, you know, I use it for everything else. So no use in having a hammer and a maul. Just use a maul. Okay, and now for the holes. Oop, that didn't go all the way. Ooh. Come on, man. All right, I want to move this over here because I'm not getting enough force because I have the mount for my camera right above it, and I don't want to hit the camera. There we go. And you know, when I first started, this part would take a little longer because, you know, I'd have to make sure everything was lined up perfect. But after a while, you just know where it is and you go for it. So I take a little bit of dye on the dauber. And I want to dye the holes and the ends black. I'll just go through the hole. It doesn't hurt to dye the whole strap, so that way it doesn't look blotchy or anything. And then massage it in and wipe it off with a towel, shop towel. What kind of towel am I using? Well, I think we got these at Sam's. Just regular kitchen towels. You know, you don't want anything scratchy. Here we go. And there we go. It is done. I'm actually going to, before I ship it out, We've got plenty of time. As you see, when you're making it, sometimes the leather gets scratched up, so I'm going to re-dye those, and I'm going to put a protective seal on it, help it protect it from the elements and from any scratches, you know. But that's how I make a pouch here at Forge Glory Custom Leathercraft. Remember, we're all about the leather, your design, and my shop coming together to make some awesome products. Folks, have a wonderful day. I appreciate all of you.